Hello, this is Sister Harlem's Library, Walter's Corner, Episode 5. Today we're going to be talking about An Illustrated History of Black Americans by John Hope Franklin. So, don't really have a cover for this, but it has many different important pictures in here. Some I've seen before and some I have not. Um, and so the contents is that it goes from one way of passage, showing us being brought from Africa to the States. Then it also has the bitter years of bondage, then dreams and delusions, a half century of injustice, and the continuing struggle. And so this has, many important things. So here we go with the map. I know some of us like to see maps. So this is, of course, Africa, showing some things in terms of some places that we were taken from. And so some of those places are definitely the Ivory Coast, the Gold Coast, other places like that. And then we have, I tabbed some items. The slave ship. And the majority of us have seen some form of this picture and how we were just thrown in and put in these ships. And then here is the harsh life of a slave. So this is what a slave auction would look like in terms of the flyer. And then the next few pages are pages of what an actual depiction of what it would actually look like. And then this picture I've seen several times before, and it's the back of a slave who was whip scarred. And so if you don't want to see this, don't look. So here it is. This is an old picture. It's from 1862, but I've seen it in many different books from the time I was a teenager. This is a proclamation in Massachusetts showing, without showing a picture of slave hunters and warning people to be aware of slave hunters that were coming to get former slaves and bring them back to their previous owners for a bounty. Then we have, let's see, what is this one? Okay, this one is a picture of some of the black abolitionists. So we have Harriet Tubman, Frederick Douglass, and the other gentleman on here I'm not as familiar with. His name is William Wells Brown. And so these were some of the black abolitionists that John Hope Franklin wanted to highlight in his book. This is showing us in factories. And this is us at the Hampton Institute learning trades. So if you don't know, Hampton University was once called Hampton Institute. So this is showing us learning trades such as dressmaking and mechanical drawing. And then the next page is also it's also at Hampton Institute, and it's bricklaying. And you see majority of the pics does show men in these roles. But this is what we were learning in terms of trades at Hampton Institute. And there were some other pictures, but I'm only highlighting certain ones. This is a silent protest in New York. And this particular protest was black people reacting to an appalling race riot in East St. Louis, Illinois, which at least 39 blacks were killed. The Negro community of New York City at the time launched a silent protest march in July 1917. And the leader of the demonstration was, James Weldon Johnson, who described it in his autobiography, which is called Along the Way. The parade moved in silence and was watched in silence. Among the watchers were those with tears in their eyes. Negro Boy Scouts distributed printed circulars which stated some of the reasons for the demonstration. We march because by the grace of God and the grace of God and the force of truth, the dangerous hampering walls of prejudice and inhuman injustices must fall. We march because we want our children to live in a better land and enjoy fairer conditions than have fallen in our lot. Then we have Back to Africa, Marcus Garvey. Famous picture of him. He led the movement to move back to Africa, where he felt that we would be treated better back with our own people. And this are pictures in Harlem. So since I live in New York, I really liked these. So this is from 1920 at a Harlem bar just before Prohibition. And this was exactly a week before they shut down everything, but then speakeasies came into play. And then this is a picture of 3 members of the Harlem social club known as the Gay Northeasterners, who paused during a stroll along 7th Avenue in the latest 1920s fashions. They were sharp. Very sharp. There was a publication called The Crisis, and this is from June 1920, and it was $1.50 for a year, 15 cents for a copy, and this is what it looked like. It featured a lot of the black authors and poets of the day, and some of those their works are featured here. Countee Cullen and Langston Hughes. And you also had James Weldon Johnson and Claude McKay. Then it's showing how we fared during the Great Depression in pictures. See, this says world's highest standards of living, and shows you it only has white people in it, and it shows black people standing on line. trying to get some food during the Great Depression. Black soldiers on duty in every war. So it pictures them in different wars during the time. This is a picture of West Point's first Negro graduate, Henry Asayan Flipper. I'll show him again. Very sharp. Then we have other pictures of Black Americans fighting or in their military gear in different times. This is Vietnam. And then the continuing struggle. So this features a lot of the pictures from the 60s. And the person in the middle of that picture was U.S. Supreme Court Justice Thurgood Marshall. Let me show that again. Somebody has shown that too fast. The first male African American. And then here we have some significant first. Some of these people you might recognize. And so they are Carl B. Stokes. You had Shirley Chisholm, Robert C. Weaver, Constance Baker Motley, Charles Gordon, and Bill Russell. So Bill Russell, basketball, federal judge. Constance Baker Motley, she served with the NAACP as a lawyer. Pulitzer Prize playwright was Charles Gordon, and that's him here. I didn't know who he was. So that's him right there. And this is Constance. Then you had Carl B. Stokes, who became in 1967 the mayor of Cleveland, Ohio, and he was the first black major city mayor ever. And you had Shirley Chisholm, who ran for president, but she was a U.S. Congresswoman out of Brooklyn. For those of you who live in New York, you know why I said Brooklyn. And then you, excuse me, then you had Robert C. Weaver, who was a cabinet member for President Lyndon Johnson. Okay, and then you should know who's in this picture. This is a famous picture of Dr. King getting arrested. This is during the boycotts and protests of the 60s, and specifically Montgomery. This is 15-year-old Elizabeth Eckford, who was one of the 9 black students chosen in 1957 by school authorities in Little Rock to attend. Again, that is one of the pictures I've seen before. I'm just going to move a little bit. Now, try to get our power back. This is Black Power, trying to bring joy to ourselves, having a rallying cry. The power fist up. This is not such good times, but the riots that happened during certain times in the country's histories. So Watts, Los Angeles, 1965. That was where that is. And this picture might be triggering for some people, so if you want to skip this part, you can skip it. I'm going to show it in 1, 2, 3. The backlash of white racism. I thought that this was important to show, especially with everything that's going on right now in our country. I hope that we do not totally revert to these times. Search of Black Pride. We did different things during the Detroit riots of 1967. The face of the Madonna in the shrine was painted brown, and so this was the Madonna and with it painting brown. And then this shows the woman from the Nation of Islam, and I think this is a beautiful picture, showing us in all of our different hues. And spokesman of the cause. So it does show Frederick Douglass. It shows just men for this particular portion. I'm not crazy about that because women were just as important also, but it does say spokesman. So it has Frederick Douglass, Martin R. Delaney, Henry, and Turner. And this is what they look like. Then you also had Booker T. Washington and W.E.B. Du Bois. Now, I think most people know who they are. If you don't, look them up. Google is your friend. Then these two people we should know: Malcolm X, Dr. King. And then these are other people: Leroy Jones, A. Philip Randolph, Elijah Muhammad, Andrew Young, Eldridge Cleaver, and Roy Wilkins. Okay, and that's it. This was another one of the books that my father had, and so much history in here. So some of it I did recall, and definitely a lot of our history can be quite upsetting, but it's important, especially with what's going on now, for us to know what happened in the past. So this is a old book, so I'm not sure whether or not it's still in print, but it is important. Again, it is an illustrated history of Black Americans by John Hope Franklin, and it was done with the editors of Time Life Books, which Time Life was a big deal back in the day. And this was published in 1970, so it was a while ago. Okay, so I hope that you enjoyed the latest Walter's Corner, and I hope everyone is being safe, enjoying the warm weather, because summer is here. And I will see you all on Sprints, and when I put out another video. Bye-bye.